Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Titan Sports, the show where we provide you with the latest news in the world of sports and here at Cal State Fullerton. My name is Justin Rosette.
Hey everyone, I'm Sasha Pytell.
What's up, Titan Sports fans? I'm Christian Elias.
Hey everybody, I'm Jonathan Mansour. We have a lot to talk about, so without further ado, let's get the ball rolling.
A major shockwave hit college football this weekend as Lane Kiffin officially left Ole Miss and agreed to become the next head coach at LSU. This move comes just less than a month before the Rebels were set to compete in their first college football playoff appearance in program history. Kiffin's departure ends his 6-year run at Mississippi, where he put together a 55-19 record and elevated Ole Miss to national relevance. Behind the scenes, though weeks of tension had been building, reports describe a sometimes chaotic process as Kiffin weighed his future while LSU pushed hard to land him. On Sunday afternoon, Kiffin announced he would take the LSU job, saying both he and his team requested to finish the season together, a request the Ole Miss athletic director rejected. Shortly after, the Rebels moved quickly to name defensive coordinator Pete Golding as their new head coach. For the Ole Miss, the move brings sudden turmoil at what was supposed to be the program's biggest moment. For LSU, it marks the start of a new era led by a coach they believe can deliver championships. And for Kiffin, the chase for a national title begins again, only this time in Baton Rouge. So, how do you guys feel about Kiffin leaving for LSU?
Yeah, honestly, this was It's pretty sucks if you're an Ole Miss fan. I mean, especially like we mentioned, 15-19 record throughout the 6 seasons. 6 consecutive bowl games, only 3 wins, right? Fortunately, no natty for them. You would expect, excuse me, for leaving a rival like LSU. I mean, sure, we'll see what kind of culture he's going to bring to LSU, and it's been in the mix there too. I mean, they ended the season 7-5, 10th in the SEC, so pretty disappointing. But to leave for your rival like this after being with your team for this long, obviously all these fans are outraged. And, LSU, it's been in the mix for like a couple years now. Other than LSU, Florida's also been in the mix too in 2021, but he failed to get that job after LSU ended up getting Louisiana coach Billy Napier. So a lot of things were in the mix there too. So it was kind of bound to say that he was going to leave Ole Miss pretty soon, but he decided to stay for a couple more years. But it was pretty unfortunate that you decided to leave your team there for an SEC rival.
Yeah, honestly, on an individual standpoint and just business perspective, it makes all the sense in the world for Lane Kiffin to go to LSU because LSU is a national college football brand. There's a reason why it could be nicknamed as wide receiver U, you know what I'm saying? Ole Miss, they have no really reputation when it comes to college football. Lane Kiffin, he came into this program and really turned it into something. But a bigger opportunity arises for him where he can now make $90 million over the next 7 years. And now he has a big plus in recruiting because of that national brand and because of how good of a coach he is. Now, leaving Ole Miss means the opportunity for cementing a legacy as a Rebel is now over. And, it sucks that he now leaves in the midst of a playoff run and he won't be able to coach, which makes sense. If I was Ole Miss, I would also deny because you just left us for a conference rival. So, now Ole Miss fans are probably going to despise him, but for Lane Kiffin himself, this is a really good move.
Yeah, I think kind of going off what you said, Lane Kiffin here, as he's kind of done his whole career, thought about himself here. There was a couple years back, he was the offensive coordinator for Alabama, and right before they went to the college football playoff, he kind of stepped away and decided to go be the coach at Florida Atlantic right before the college football playoff, so they had to replace him as the OC. I think it's kind of a theme throughout his career, and I think for most normal people, I don't want to say normal, but for most, I think Lane Kiffin is just different. In his mind, he wanted to coach at a blue blood, a school like LSU, where he could have the biggest reputation, as Sasha said, bring championships to that program. But a lot of people would have said, they built something great here at Ole Miss. Let's finish this out, see if we can win a championship. The Ole Miss athletic director, they were promising him, you'll be the biggest name, we'll build statues after you, you can be what you want to be here and build something here. But for Kiffin, he thought that LSU was the best place for him to do that. The only thing I have a problem with is he was still so adamant after he decided. He kind of dragged the whole thing out for weeks, right? And then even down to the very last day, there was reporters. ESPN reporter Marty Smith had a crazy story about him chasing down Kiffin at the airport. There was he kind of dragged it out, and there were reports that he threatened to take the offensive coaching staff with him if they didn't let him coach in the college football playoff. So That's the only thing I have an issue with is he was being kind of a diva about it and trying to drag things out and I guess even threatening to take people with him. Others said it wasn't true, so we don't know what happened for sure in those closed door meetings. But overall, I think he made the decision that was best for him. I think the best comparison I have is he reminds me of Kevin Durant, right? When Kevin Durant made the best choice for him going to Golden State to win championships and it worked out, but the world hated him for it. And the same thing is happening now for Lane Kiffin. Ole Miss fans are going to hate him forever. They were at the airport flipping him off as he was leaving, going on to the plane. So overall, I think he made the best choice for him. But for everyone else, for the Ole Miss players, I think the program, it kind of overshadows a great season they've had. So I hope that they're able to finish the season off well because it's going to kind of hurt them in the college football playoff now not having their coach. But we'll see if they can finish out the season strong.
Yeah, definitely. I see your point at the end there, like how that could affect the players because, as you'd said, this has been like a pattern in his career. And so my concern is like, what message does this send his players? Because he's always built a culture in the locker room and like spent years preaching about commitment and dedication and like truly finishing the job. And so now if he leaves before their biggest game in program history, I really feel for the players because it makes them question like, hey, like you are our support system, we had you and you had our back, and then now how are like future college athletes supposed to like trust the messages of their coach if they're just like so easy to transition to the next team like that?
The Lakers tipped off their Thanksgiving weekend with games against the Dallas Mavericks and the New Orleans Pelicans. In the first quarter against the Mavericks, Luka Doncic finally got off the Ozempic and began feasting for the Lakers, scoring on back-to-back possessions, including a triple to make it 28-22 at the end of the first quarter. However, the momentum was short-lived as the Mavericks stampeded their way back, taking advantage of a Laker turnover and nailing a triple before going into the half with a narrow 62-60 lead. The second half went back and forth, but it was the Lakers' efficient shooting from the floor that ultimately got the job done, hitting nearly 60% of their goals as a team. With the final scoreboard of 129-119, LA took the win with the exciting whites of Austin Reeves and Luka Doncic, dropping 38 and 35 points respectively. The Lakers then soared ahead of the New Orleans Pelicans despite LeBron's absence. In a dominant first quarter, the Lakers shot over 60% from the floor and scored an absurd 46 points, the largest in any quarter this season and tied for the fifth most in an ongoing quarter in franchise history. Doncic once again dominated, scoring 20 of his 34 total points in the first quarter, while adding 7 rebounds and 6 assists by halftime, giving the Lakers a comfortable 77-57 lead. By the third quarter, the Lakers already reached triple digits, even the Pelicans shooting nearly 63% from the floor in the third quarter. The Lakers never allowed their lead to fall into single digits. The Lakers took home the win 133-121 and are currently second in the Western Conference. So guys, the Lakers obviously dominated the little Thanksgiving weekend, but last night they fell to the Suns, ending their win streak. What do you think is going to be the major improvement the Lakers are going to need to work on moving forward?
Yeah, so I'll quickly start off. I mean, I think on the defensive end, there's kind of some things to work on, kind of just more like closing out on the perimeter, more specifically. But just kind of to go back, I mean, this Laker team, they're kind of shocking everyone. I mean, no one really had them finishing, well, currently, right now, they're the second seed in the Western Conference, and no one really had that. A lot of people had them maybe just falling into the play-in. But they were 8-2. They're 8-2 in their last game, and then before, last night's game against the Phoenix Suns, where it was just a meltdown, you know, second game of back-to-back, so it kind of makes sense. On their 7-game winning streak, they, as an offense, they were averaging 126 points per game. That's going to be a recipe for success, and the offense as a whole leads the league in field goal percentage, and they're a top 10 rebounding unit, which allows them to get in transition, which is exactly what Coach J.J. Redick wants. And then, you know, Austin Reeves, he's playing like an all-star. I don't know how you don't have him as an all-star to this point, averaging 28.1 points per game.
I think they've had issues with their turnovers this season. Even J.J. Redick openly acknowledged that that's been LA's biggest problem. But now with LeBron back, he really kind of flips that turnover rate when he's in the lineup, and he clears the possessions very well by reading the defense early, which really allows Reeves and Donovich to play the ball more efficiently. So I think with LeBron being back, they'll kind of get in the rhythm with that same synergy that they had, and then definitely keep the same momentum going forward.
Yeah, I think the Lakers look very good right now. It's a good time to be a Laker fan. The 7-game win streak looked very good, back-to-back wins a couple days ago. I think I want to talk a little bit about yesterday's game. Played against the Phoenix Suns, and they lost. It was a blowout. LeBron almost lost his 10-point streak that's lasted over 1,000 games, like 6,000. Don't look like that. It's been over 6,000 days. The last time LeBron didn't score 10 points, the iPhone 1 just came out. Think about that, bro. Think about that. So that was a little scary, but also it's kind of like we lost by 20 points to the Suns. Dylan Brooks, the biggest villain in the league, had 30. He was trash talking LeBron. It's just like a bad look. And I think being a Laker fan, we haven't had a team this good since our championship team in 2020 in the bubble. But I think what scares me is just the inconsistency. I mean, Luka, again, had 30 points. He's been playing otherworldly. He's been absolutely crazy this season. So consistent, 30 points a game. He's had 30 points like the last how many games in a row. Austin Reeves as well. I'm just a little worried about everyone else, and including LeBron. I think LeBron has, I would say, I hate to say it, the R word, but regressed just a little bit this season. For the first time, I feel like we've really seen it. Especially yesterday, he just looks kind of, I mean, he's 41 years old. He looks kind of old out there. But even the role players, Rui Hachimura, I don't think I scored the same amount of points as him yesterday. Gabe Vincent, I still don't like him. Marcus Smart, inconsistent. DeAndre Ayton didn't have the best game yesterday. I think all of our role players and role pieces have been inconsistent. And when you get to the playoffs, when you're playing teams like Denver, OKC, it can't just be Luka. Luka and Reeves can do whatever they want. They can have 60, 70 points combined. But the role players have to step up and they're going to have to score, and they haven't been doing that consistently. So that's the one thing I'm worried about now. I'm looking for Rui to become more consistent in the offense, but it's also hard when you have guys like Luka and Reeves with the ball in their hands 24/7. So we got to figure something out on the offensive end to get those other guys more involved.
Yeah, like you mentioned, obviously, it was the chemistry since the 2020 championship. The chemistry is obviously there. And like you mentioned, the inconsistencies, the turnovers. They had 22 against the Suns yesterday, which was honestly absurd there too. And then obviously another big thing is their three-point percentage. I mean, you're looking at the Mavericks game. They shot 51%, beyond the arc. Then you're looking back into the Pelicans, 37%. And then last night's game, 35%. So that's another inconsistency with the three-point shooting there too. So there's got to be a lot of different things to work around there as well.
What's not to love about Thanksgiving when you have turkey, ham, macaroni and cheese, your uncles and aunts arguing about the political and economical state of the world, and two of America's most hated teams facing off in a pivotal matchup with playoff implications at stake? The Dallas Cowboys closed out a narrow victory on Thanksgiving against the Kansas City Chiefs 31-28, keeping their playoff hopes alive. On the boys' first drive, Dak Prescott was picked off early by Jalen Watson, which later set up a Rashee Rice touchdown for the Chiefs. Prescott then marched right back down the field, dotting up CeeDee Lamb for a 29-yard touchdown, tying the game at 7-7. The Chiefs reclaimed the lead on the next drive on a 4th-and-goal touchdown with tight end Travis Kelce, putting them up 14-7. Dallas controlled the momentum in the second quarter, however, featuring a field goal from Brandon Aubrey and a 43-yard touchdown from running back Malik Davis, shutting out the Chiefs 10-0 and leading at halftime 17-14. Both defenses were locking it down in the third quarter, forcing 3 punts and only allowing a combined 32 yards. The Cowboys ended that streak as they got on the board late with another Brandon Aubrey field goal. The Chiefs later capped off a long drive with Rashee Rice's second touchdown, giving them a 21-20 lead, but was snatched once again after Javonte Williams' touchdown, giving the boys a 28-21 lead. Mahomes still kept the Chiefs in the game after a touchdown pass to Hollywood Brown, making it a 3-point game. However, for the Chiefs, unfortunately, they left too much time on the clock for Dak Prescott as he iced the game with a 13-yard pass to wide receiver George Pickens, solidifying the win for the Cowboys. So guys, this was certainly a great Thanksgiving slate of games. We had this game, we had the Lions game as well, and the Ravens and Bengals game as a nightcapper, but this was probably the closest game of the weekend. What did you guys think, and what were your main takeaways from this game with the Cowboys beating the Chiefs?
Yeah, so obviously one of my things is, the Cowboys, they're still alive. A couple weeks ago I said season was over, but, thankfully Dak Prescott is the quarterback, and he's making it work. One of the big things I saw going into this game was Spagnuolo's defense, and one thing about Spags, he loves his blitzes, and that's exactly what they're going to do against Dak. But against the blitz, this game specifically, against the Chiefs, he completed 12 of his passes on 12 attempts, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then the early interception under pressure. So, and Dak has been so far one of the best quarterbacks in the league when it comes to being under pressure. But this whole game in general was just the offense, right? The first pick, Dak, he completely erased that, and he went locked in. 320 yards, 2 touchdowns to keep this team, to keep this game, more of the locks. CeeDee Lamb and Pickens finally having a great bounce back. But the defense, I'm giving credit to this Cowboys defense. They're finally stepping up against the hungry Chiefs team that really needed to be. Towards the end there too, we saw that late bomb to Mahomes, to I believe it was Rashee Rice, where should have been a sack, but the Mahomes magic, it comes great too. And the one thing about Mahomes, it's still a Chiefs team with Mahomes. He was still going to work his magic. they're going to have to execute. The only issue I see with the Cowboys moving forward here is the red zone. They need to execute in the red zone. That's probably the only issue I have on the offense, especially now looking to this Lions game where if they beat the Lions, on Thursday, it's going to be a better shot in the playoffs. But other than that, they're going to have to win out, and they're going to need a lot of helping hands, especially with one of them. Niners probably going to have to lose out, but that's probably not going to happen. But yeah, but looking at the Niners' next schedule, they have 3 tough games ahead of them. As for the Cowboys, their next 2 tough opponents would be the Lions, and the next tough opponent would be against your Chargers. So it's going to be a lot of great things to see, and it's December. Who doesn't love December football?
Yeah, so I was paying close attention to the Chiefs within this game because, there's so much controversy with that team. They were up within the first quarter 14-7 by the end of it, and then we didn't see them score again till the fourth. So I think that drought is really why they lost, and this also highlights the bigger issue that's within their offense. I mean, we see 2 different sides of Mahomes. We see the incredible playmaker Mahomes and then the down-to-down quarterback Mahomes. And then in this game, the playmaker, he almost brought back the game. However, the in-structure version of him just wasn't seeing the field. Like, he missed reads and then he overthrew his receivers all game, which obviously this has been the story since 2023 with this team and a major reason for their offensive decline. So I think Mahomes rarely gets criticized for it because he's still making very highlight reel plays, but at the end of the day, those miracle plays is a low percentage way to run an offense. And then, in this game, those highlight reel plays were not there for a drive or 2, and then the offense stalls out. And so without structure, I feel like the offense can't be as dependable. So it just leaves me curious where they're going to end up in the playoffs and really how far they'll get this season.
Yeah, I think. I think, kind of talking about the Chiefs before I get to the Cowboys, I think the lack of a consistent running game has hurt them, and I think it kind of forces Patrick Mahomes to have to make these miraculous plays, and I think we've seen it happen so many times. He made that crazy throw where he was kind of parallel to the ground, but still not able to make it happen. I think the bigger story in this game for me is the Chiefs might not make the playoffs. They probably still will, and the AFC is a little weaker, but no, we'll see. But I think to me, the Cowboys, after they came off of the bye week, and I think they're peaking at the right time right now. We know how good Dak Prescott can be. He arguably could have won that MVP a couple years ago when Lamar Jackson won it. He had a great season that year. In the last 3 games, Dak is averaging 314 yards, and he has 8 touchdowns and just 2 interceptions over those games. And also, I think the Cowboys' offense is so exciting. You have George Pickens, he's a highlight reel, whether he's crashing out on the bench or he's celebrating after a touchdown, right? He's averaged 126 yards in the last 3 games and had 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb had a slower start to the season, but he's averaged 84 yards the last 3 games in this win streak. So I think they're peaking at the right time, and they keep winning. This Lions game is huge because the Lions are kind of on a backward slide right now. So if the Cowboys offense can kind of light the Lions up a bit, and it'll, for one, drop the Lions down toward they might not be a playoff team, but also the Eagles are also sliding right now a little bit. So if the Cowboys can keep winning games and the Eagles lose a couple games, the Cowboys can kind of take over and try to make the playoffs in the NFC East.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned it. This Chiefs team is still scary. I don't know if it's just because they're the Chiefs and they have Patrick Mahomes, but I'm still worried about them because their offense is still looking pretty good. I mean, Mahomes he's amazing. 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. You kind of mentioned that the run game just has kind of been inconsistent, but you kind of look at their offensive weapons, and Rashee Rice, he's been amazing since suspension, kind of solidifying himself as that wide receiver 1, like we kind of saw early last season before his injury. Xavier Worthy, he still has that big play ability. Travis Kelce, he's a beast when it comes to when they're in the red zone. I think the big problem for now the Chiefs moving forward is Josh Simmons, their left tackle. He suffered an injury and is probably going to be out long term. And we already know Mahomes, if you put pressure on him and you kind of get him dancing outside the pocket, he can get wild, and you kind of can get some turnovers and kind of move on to that in a game. Credit to the Cowboys though. Their D-line did not the Chiefs on the defensive side, their D-line did not put any pressure on Dak Prescott. You mentioned how many times Spagnuolo likes to blitz. No sacks for the Chiefs. But now credit to the Cowboys, and I'm going to slide for Jerry Jones here, believe it or not, because you mentioned it. George Pickens, he has been amazing. Him and CeeDee Lamb look like the best wide receiver duo in football. And then you have Quinnen Williams and Logan Wilson, who have been great additions to this defense. And Williams, he has been amazing in the run defense. And I don't know, man, Cowboys, they kind of look scary. I know you mentioned it. Chargers do play the Cowboys in week 16, I believe, in Dallas. And I'm honestly, what I used to think was an easy win is now pretty scary, especially with that offense and that defense starting to hum.
Yeah, their offense to find the consistency. Just as I said, really the only mix-up would be just execution in the red zone, and then only 1.5 games behind Philly. So the division definitely still is up for grabs without a doubt. They just need to worry about this Lions game. As for the Chiefs, they currently hold the 10th seed. As of right now, you're looking at the standings. They have Pittsburgh above them, and then the Texans at the 8th seed. They're slowly on the rise. If the Texans win out, I doubt seeing the Chiefs making this playoff just because, AFC is kind of a little weird compared to the NFC. Cowboys currently hold the 9th seed. Lions are above them. That's why that Thursday game is going to be so pivotal coming for this playoff implications.
I think for the Cowboys, a lot of times the last couple of years they've gone into the playoffs, they've been like the favorite. They've been at home, and of course that they end up losing in the first round. They've lost to 49ers, Packers in the first round of the playoffs. If the Cowboys this year I say they're flying under the radar a little bit. They're not as hyped as they have been. If they're able to sneak into the playoffs and they're peaking at the right time with their offense playing so well, as a road team and more of an underdog without big expectations, I would not be one of the top seeds that has to play against the Cowboys in the first round if their offense is playing like it is right now. So we'll see. They could cause some havoc in the NFC playoffs.
We have a winning team in Anaheim. Yes, you heard that right. And no, it's not the Angels. After what seems like ages, the Anaheim Ducks have continued their hot start to the season, crushing the St. Louis Blues 4-1 last night. In the first period, Ducks center Mason McTavish shot one straight from the left side, flying underneath the Blues netminder for the first goal of the game. The Blues quickly responded after center Robert Thomas took control of the puck, swerving past the men in orange before passing it to right wing Jordan Kyrou for the equalizing shot, tying the score 1-1 in the same period. Just minutes later, the Ducks answered right back as Pavel Mintyukov hustled over to the offensive zone on a fast break before he sent one in from the right side to give the Ducks a 2-1 lead. The game ran cold until the third period when the Ducks wrapped it around the crease and sent it back to the point before center Leo Carlson put one through off a deflection to give the Ducks a commanding 3-1 lead. In the last minutes, left winger Chris Kreider took advantage on an empty net, making it 4-1 by the end. The Ducks are up to 16-9-1 on the season and are currently first in the Pacific Division. Guys, this Pacific Division is loaded. The Ducks, they had a very impressive come-from-behind win against the LA Kings on Black Friday. What have you guys kind of been noticing for this Ducks to have this really hot start to the season?
I think for me, the Ducks they haven't been 500 in a season since 2017-18 season. I was 13 years old. And now I'm a senior in college, so it's been a long time since they've been good. I think this is the story of a team that is kind of like as we talk about in like the NBA or NFL all the time, it's like kind of like they've had a slow rebuild, right? I mean, the last 3 years, they've had 23 wins, 27 wins, and then I believe it was 35 wins last season, so they've been ramping up. And now this season, they already have 16 wins through 26 games, so it's just kind of like an evolution. They're continuing to get better. I think their young players are really taking steps up. You talk about Cutter Gauthier, Leo Carlson, they have 66 points combined. So far, one of the best duos in the league. And so I think this is a story of a young team. I guess you can kind of compare it to like an OKC team of like 2 years ago, right? When they lost to the Mavericks, I believe, in the second round of the playoffs. Don't know if they'll have what it takes to win a championship this year, but they certainly are looking good in the regular season and could make some noise in the playoffs. So it's just cool to have, as you said, probably won't be the Angels for another like lifetime or so, but it's just good to have another winning team in Anaheim,
Yeah, like you mentioned, this is a very young team. Everything so far it's clicking right there too. It's still young. Like you mentioned, first in the Pacific Division, 5th in the league so far. And then one of the things you mentioned is Cutter Gauthier. He does lead the league, not lead the league, excuse me, team high with 15 goals. So obviously the offense is there. So it's really nice to see, at least for the Ducks there too, for all those years of rebuilding, them finally having some success there too. I would hope to see they make a little bit of runs, especially knowing how young this team is. I do believe they have the opportunities for that. But, like you mentioned too, I believe the consistency is there, the chemistry is there. But going against the more of the the veterans in the league, it'll be a little hard for the Ducks. But in a couple years from now, this Ducks team can finally have hopefully a dynasty in amongst of Anaheim, especially with the Angels not probably going to do anything for the next couple of years.
Yeah, definitely. I think especially with Joe Quenneville joining their team in May, his presence is really changing the team culture. I think a lot of people talk about his strong coaching record, but not enough people are talking about how well he's able to structure his team, and that's really been changing like how they're performing for sure, because the young players, like are having such a strong season, especially like Carlson, Lacombe, and McTavish. They can play more freely because you can tell they really trust the system and the structure that he's been providing. And now they're finally all on the same page. And then that'll give them long-term success because they've definitely woke up the Pacific Division, let them know that they're the team to beat for sure. And also no one expected them to be a threat this year. So I think that's just a huge improvement. And now we see teams that are like planning specifically for them. They're clogging up the middle of the ice to slow down Anaheim's fast forwards, which we've seen a lot with Leo Carlson, Cutter Gutierrez, Torrey Terry, and Mason Tavish. So I think it's definitely a positivity that they're a part of the conversation for the division races and the playoffs because, like you said, they have not appeared in a lot of years.
Yeah, Sasha, I like what you mentioned about the new coaching staff. They have this team playing at a very fast pace, and their puck possession is really good compared to last season. And then they're just getting a really good mix from veteran play and young play. And speaking of young play, Leo Carlson, he is on pace for 112 points, which would be a team single-season record.
Yeah, I think it's all a lot better when you think about how bad the Angels are. So it just makes Anaheim feel a lot better at the time.
All right, you know what? Coming up after the break, I'll be ready to lay up the dominant victory that CSUF men's basketball had last weekend against Pepperdine. Stay tuned.
I have a question about
Welcome back, Titans sports fans. The weekend before Thanksgiving, the Titans men's basketball team, they played in the Portland MTE tournament, where they finished 1-2. This past Saturday, they returned to Titan Gym to take on the Pepperdine Waves. So over here, the Titans, they're going to get into transition. It's going to be a cross-court pass to Joshua Ward, who's going to lay it up off the glass. The Titans are on the board in this one. Then it's going to be Bryce Cofield, Sierra Cannon's very own Bryce James, best basketball teammate. He's going to get the layup to go off the glass. And then it's going to be a three-point party. Started off by Landon Seaman. He's going to lace the Titans' first three-pointer of the game. And then following that, it's going to be Joshua Ward. He's going to step up, pull, easy. Titans down in this one. But then it's going to be a Christian Williams three-pointer who's going to give them the lead. And the Titans would not look back. Then in the closing seconds of the first half, Joshua Ward, pull-up shot, easy money. The Titans, they take a 7-point lead into halftime. Then in the second half, Joshua Ward with a small defender. Get off me, little boy. Easy. Teardrop floater. And then it's going to be a Landon Seaman pass from Jaden Henderson in transition. Going to get the flyby to work. Titans up 57 to 49. And then it's going to be a Landon Seaman 3. Bang. Easy. 65-52. Landon, he's going to finish with 17 points. And then it's going to be Jaden Henderson with the dagger. Bang. Once again, 75-60. The Titans will go on to winning this one 83-69. Joshua Ward, he will be your leading scorer of the game with 19 points. The Titans will return to Titan Gym this Thursday and open up Big West play against Cal Poly. And my question to the desk is going to be, what do you guys think the Titans have to do to kind of rack up some Big West wins? In this game, they finished with 14 points in transition and shot 30% from three. Is that going to be a recipe for success, especially this Thursday?
Yeah, Jonathan, thanks for that. Did a great job there. I think men's basketball, what I've liked a lot so far this season is when Coach Taylor sometimes the starting lineups can be kind of iffy, kind of questionable. I think when they rely on their guys that are their main guys, for example, Bryce Caulfield, Landon Seaman, those guys haven't been starting a lot. So now that they're getting into the starting lineup, I think you got to let your best players just do what they do. Landon Seaman's been a 4 or 5 year college player already. He's won Player of the Year in his conference in the NAIA over at Menlo. He's ready for this. He's ready for this D1 experience. And I think he showed that 17 points. He's showing his range a little bit there. So I think relying on your best players, and I think this team has been at their best this season. As we talked about, we had Landon here. We also was able to talk to coach before the season started. They have sort of a new play style. So I think continuing to get up lots of threes, that's going to be their identity. So I think they can continue to do that, and they can make some noise in the Big West as they continue to do that.
Yeah, also with that, they're just going to have to get really going early in the first half. I believe that's where this men's basketball team doesn't get going, is that they start struggling in the first half, and that's kind of where everything goes down there too. Another thing about that too is the bench is going to be another crucial part. They're starting to, be lights off. I mean, 35 points off the bench this game against Pepperdine. Another underrated thing that no one's looking at this is they're going to have to dominate in the paint as well. In the paint, 46-26 in the paint against Pepperdine too. So get your big guys in the paint. That's going to be another big thing. Landon Seaman and Joshua Ward, 19 points, 17 points respectively. So everything's been clicking so far for, in this game against Pepperdine. But again, it's going to be that first half consistency if they're going to pull out against Cal Poly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as you alluded to as well, that they're coming out with new playing styles. So just as they continue working through that and building the momentum, it'll spread throughout the team. Everyone will become more comfortable, and then we'll just see them really advance because it's still early on. They have a way to go, and then they're already looking very strong from what we can see. And so I have high hopes for them, and I think they will perform well and do well for the Titans.
Yeah, well, we wish them a lot of good luck, especially this Thursday as Big West play. That's the most important play. Everything before that was just kind of like a warm-up, so hopefully they can get onto the right track starting this Thursday against Cal Poly. All right, that about wraps everything up. Thank you for tuning in. Please give us a follow on Instagram and X at TitanTV CSUF and on TikTok at TitanTV_CSUF. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of
Titan Sports.